Here's the next video for drawing perspective and these cylinders and ellipses. And I'm going to get into the specific cylinders and how I would draw ellipses for this specific image in one moment. But first, I'm going to encourage you to go practice this, where I set this up. I split it in half, and then I split the half in half, and then I drew a diagonal and marked the points where those cross. And I'm going to sketch some horizontal lines through that point that will be should be the height of those boxes. But this is just a great thing to practice in general. This is a nice organized grid. So I would practice that, filling this up, and to really get a sense of, yeah, it does seem like this ellipse is getting more open and getting closer to me, and this ellipse is getting overall smaller as well as flatter and appears further away. So do that a bunch. For this, and then come back. So I'm going to look at this area right down here and talk about how I set that up specifically, and then it's a little bit different than having a nice organized grid like this. Here I've drawn it out on this transparent version, and hopefully it's all dark enough and not too messy. But what I've done is I've decided where the horizontal line of sight would be. I've also just kind of assigned where the vertical line of sight would be and where those two intersect. I'm calling my point of view, which also is the vanishing point. That was a lot of whiz-bang words there, so take your time if those are confusing to you. But if the vanishing point was somewhere right there, what I'm doing is I'm sketching a line from that vanishing point a little bit outside of the widest point. What I am trying to do is imagine the imaginary rectangle in perspective that these candles could be sitting on. Horizontal ground plane. And I'm using that to make sure I understand what these ellipses should be doing, and in particular that's going to be tricky because this one I can't see at all. These I can gauge. So I've sketched these out to sort of what I think them to be, and they're oriented so they're not lined up vertically or horizontally like these ones are. But let's see, what I'm going to try to do first is just draw this outer rectangle in perspective. Now, can't I was going to see if I could leave that in screen, but Gonna have to trust me, it's still here. I'm using my R's and J's and L's and 7s. So I'm going to set this up touch dollar like that. So that's this original trapezoid. And I've marked off the height of this trapezoid to help me place the rectangular perspective rectangles that go in here. And I've also tried to indicate, I know that's a bit confusing, but I both have tried to indicate where the points of the outer box would be, or where they would aim, as well as just the actual width. That may be a little confusing, but I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to sketch in this point and this point, and I'm just comparing it to what I feel like. Whoa, that was not that close. This is kind of in thirds. This is definitely smaller than this one, and I'm still gonna, I can still just think of the vanishing point as all vanishing points heading in that direction, and in conjunction with those. So I want to, let me see over here, I want to make sure I also have my guides for sort of what's halfway. So for this one, it looks like the height of this box, not box, rectangle, trapezoid, that's a lot of fun words, is a little less than halfway, which seems a lot to me, but I'm going to go with what I've got going. I think this is going to be a little bit wider than that point. Let's see, I'm going to do this one next, which actually looks like the closest point is below the halfway point over here and a touch below this back point. Looks like it overlaps a touch there, which is okay because it's just the outer box. Still going to nudge that one just a touch bigger. The outer, oh man, I need a better word. Trapezoid is hurting my brain too much. And then the back edge of this one, I'll sketch in something like that. Let's do this one over here. The closest point is really is about halfway, which would mean this would need to go up. I could draw horizontal. These are all estimates that I'll take time, but not on video here, to make sure they seem like they make sense. This one looks like it's a lot wider. I just sort of looked at that. Got a better sense of how wide this one would be. I think in general it's good testimony to this stuff. It just sort of plays with your brain, and this one seems like it's something like this. Nope, a little further. I'm also looking at these negative shapes, and that's helping me. Seems to me that that's interesting. I'm not sure if this is wider than this one. Either way, that's a quick idea of how I would just sort of try to block in these initial perspective rectangles that the ellipses will be sitting in. And this may seem like a lot of detailed stuff, and it probably is, but I think it's really important to, it's tricky to get the things to really feel like ellipses and cylinders, to really feel like they're sitting on a horizontal surface. So this one seems wide to me, but I'm going to just sort of keep going here to show you what I would do next. I would imagine that, and then just go about drawing in my ellipses. For each of these. As they get higher up and closer to the horizon, eye level, they will become sequentially less open and flatter. It can help. I should have done this. Making sure I have, check out my other videos on general ellipse drawing. There's a whole bunch of things to think about. That one seems like it's probably a little bit too open. Maybe not. But that's the basic idea for how I would try to set these up for a drawing of something like these candles. And I suggest you practice this as well as this. Just spend some time with understanding ellipses, understanding how to draw the overall shape as well as draw the overall shapes very subtly different, less open and more open, and very subtly placed in a drawing like this in different places, positions in the actual setup. I'm going to go with that for now. And this is sort of my study. And like I say, I encourage you to do that. And I will come back and sort of go from there to making sure I get to something like this. And that'll be in the next video.